From Luke chapter 9, in the New Revised Standard Version, we read these words. Jesus, he is foretelling his death to his disciples. And then it says in Luke chapter 9, verse 21, he sternly ordered and commanded them not to tell anyone, saying, the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And then he said to them all, if any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves, and take up their cross daily, and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. What does it profit a man if they gain the whole world and forfeit themselves? Over here in chapter 14 of Luke is a somewhat similar type of passage. The cost of discipleship, verse 25. Now large crowds were traveling with him, and he turned and he said to them, whoever comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, and yes, even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost and see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, this fellow began to build and he's not able to finish. Or what king, when going to war against another king, will not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions. Now, when it talks about hate, it's kind of a qualitative term. That is, literally we might record it, love less than. Who doesn't ever put me first isn't worthy of being my disciple. And he mentions the toughness of it. And I've been in a number of careers or jobs in my lifetime. I owned some pigs. I was a farmhand. I've worked in different factories. I've been an educator. I've been a pastor. I've been a student. I've done a number of things. But by far, the most difficult, the most challenging, the most that stretched me the most was being a pastor. It's a tough job. Hi, church family. Hey, I know that I look a little bit scruffy today. I haven't shaved for several days. I've laid in bed longer than any human ought to lay in bed. I've watched so much TV, I can't stand the TV anymore. I just turn it on and turn the sound off so I don't have to listen to it. And it's like nearly 60 degrees today. I can't stand it, so I decided to do what I like best, to grab my camera and my tripod and go out and run some trail cams. And I figure as long as I'm not within 6 feet of a squirrel or a rabbit or something, that it's not likely I'm going to infect anybody with anything. Here we are. Switch this around. There's a trail cam. Now, there's a trail that comes right down here, and I've been following the trail. There's another trail that comes right over there and jumps right over to here. So I set the old trail cam so that it would be aimed right on this trail right here. And then I think I'm going to switch it so that it's aimed on that trail right over there. You know, it's kind of interesting, but everything we do has a price. If I'm going to run trail cams, if I'm going to take nature pictures, I have to be out in nature at least enough to know what I'm doing and to be able to read the signs of the animals. If I'm going to hunt, I have to do the same thing. Farming doesn't just come naturally. From the time we're little, you know, those that are farmers, they've liked the soil. Anything we do has a price to be paid for it. That brings me to my point for tonight. I'll talk about it a little more later, but it's the thought that when I was probably middle age as a pastor, I started hearing young pastors talk about the need for exercise and rest and proper diet, and which I totally think is right. I talked about that last week, that everything we do is sacred. But then I would hear them say, Jesus already died for the church. I don't have to. That kind of caught me strange. I thought about it quite a bit. Well, I'm still kind of chewing on it, and I may not know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to change this trail cam right now, put new batteries in it, and then maybe say a little bit more. Well, I've got the trail cam all set and done a little hiking and probably enough exercise for the day. now the bed doesn't sound so bad anymore. Well, what I was saying when I first came down here in the trail cam was that I used to hear pastors say, with a certain amount of forcefulness, that they learned that Jesus died for the church. They didn't have to. Here's some trucks on the highway. I have discovered through the case, through my lifetime in ministry, that yes, Jesus did die for the church. And the church is the bride of Christ. And we don't have to make atonement for the church. And we are not the church's savior. But that's about all the farther I'll concede. Because over and over again, Jesus tells us there's a price to be paid for for sharing the gospel. He says that we need to pick up our cross and follow him. He mentions when people decide they're going to follow him, he says the birds of the air have nests, the foxes have dens, but the Son of Man doesn't have any place to lay his head. When James and John were following him, he says, can you be baptized with the baptism I'm being baptized with? What I've discovered is that everything has a price, and that there's a price for doing ministry. And sometimes through the years, it's a pretty hefty price. All through time, all through history, all over the globe, Jesus' disciples have paid a heavy price for sharing the gospel. From the very beginning until now. And there's a price for you, and there's a price for me. If you're going to do ministry, if you're going to share the gospel, if you're going to serve Christ, there's a cross. And that cross is not arthritis. And that cross is not, some minor inconvenience or some financial problems. The cross of Jesus Christ was a sacrificial cross that he picked up on behalf of a lost world. And our cross is much the same. It is a sacrificial cross that we embrace for the sake of the lost, for the sake of the church. So if anybody ever says Jesus died for the church, we don't have to, I think they're wrong. Of course, that's just me, and I've said from the very beginning that this isn't great theology and it's not Bible study today. It's just things that I picked up along my journey as a pastor. And you may disagree. That's okay. I do hope you have a great week. And I think I'm going to go back and rest some more.